I could be wrong here, but Gary Gensler's been taking a lot of losses lately. The Bitcoin ETF got approved with him kicking and screaming. He lost his summary judgment in classifying Ethereum as a security, which kind of then opened Pandora's box to where we are now. For him to lose the battle with the ETH ETF, they were already talking about the Solana ETF on CNBC last night on Fast Money. I'm a big fan of this news because this validates Ethereum, I think, is from the sound money perspective and that argument. And we can now start to actually build ecosystems on top of it if institutional interest actually is there for something like Ethereum. But in Gary's eyes, this is just another loss.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for checking into our latest Traded Black podcast, Crypto. Yes, 2024 is the year of crypto, obviously with the spot Bitcoin ETF that was approved in January, and we saw Bitcoin rip. Well, here we are 5 minutes later, and now all the attention is on Ethereum. So what is going to happen, and will this ETF be approved? Well, let's welcome in our next guest, CEO of Morgan Creek Capital Management and OMG, Mark Yusko, back to the podcast. Good to see you. How are things?
Great to see you. I am always happy to be introduced as the old macro guy. That, because it's what I am, right? I mean, there's a group of us. We are old, white hair to prove it. We are macro guys, right? We all came out of the macro landscape, whether it's Novo or Moorhead or Tapiero, all of us. And look, we collectively believe this is the greatest macro trade of our lifetime. And what does that mean, right? Well, we're basically taking value, money, monetary assets, et cetera, and tech and merging them together. And that is making like I said, this big macro trade. Yeah. The Ethereum news, big news. I mean, we are on the day. So, today, day after Bitcoin Pizza Day, yesterday, 22nd, today, 23rd, is the day. Sometime by 7 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, we will get an answer from the SEC whether they approve the ETH ETF. I'm not a real big betting man, but I'm probably taking the under. I know there's a lot of people speculating the price. The price is telling us it's approved, right? I mean, the price ran from 3,000 to 3,800. I mean, it was a big move. So I probably shouldn't take the under, but I just feel like Gensler really doesn't want this. He didn't want the Bitcoin ETF, but the courts forced his hand.
So what's changing?
He really doesn't want the Ethereum. He really doesn't want the Ethereum ETF.
Yeah.
Can you guys? Why doesn't he? If you want to explain, Anthony Varrell, good to see you. Varrell, it's good to see you. But
Gary Gensler. I could be wrong here, but Gary Gensler's been taking a lot of losses lately. The Bitcoin ETF got approved with him kicking and screaming. He lost his summary judgment in classifying Ethereum as a security, which kind of then opened Pandora's box to where we are now. I mean, for him to then lose the battle with the ETH ETF, they were already talking about the Solana ETF on CNBC last night on Fast Money. Right. So, I mean, this is I'm a big fan of this news because this validates Ethereum, I think, is from the sound money perspective and that argument. And we can now start to actually build ecosystems on top of it if institutional interest actually is there for something like Ethereum. But in Gary's eyes, this is just another loss. It's going to cascade because then you've got things like XRP that he also took a loss on. Coinbase actually opened up XRP for trading in New York as of this morning. This is going to become a crypto just snowball. That's not going to stop anytime soon, regardless of his disclosure arguments or his securitization arguments that he wants to go by. The genie will literally be out of the bottle if this ETF does pass.
Yeah. And what I think is interesting, right, is in theory, he controls the decision because if you look at the Bitcoin ETF, you have Hester and I can't remember the second one, who are always going to vote yes, right? They are very positive, logical, intelligent people that understand that this is a technological innovation wave that you don't want to stand in front of, and they support. And Hester is very articulate about it and all of her writings and commentary. So, okay, Then you have two, I shouldn't cast aspersions, but let's just say maybe less thoughtful. I won't say less intelligent. Maybe I did say just less, but less thoughtful that voted no.
Yeah.
And so that left Gary as the swing vote. And in theory, with the Bitcoin ETF, given how outwardly opposed he was, you would have thought he voted no and someone else voted yes. But no, he actually, according to the minutes, he voted yes. Now, was that because literally he was, strong-armed physically by the courts, or was it, 3D chess, right? Is he saying, "Oh, I'll approve this so BlackRock and all these guys can come in and buy up all the Bitcoin, and then we'll take it"? Yeah, that's I've heard people talk about that, and this is all a big game to get the boomers to buy this non-Bitcoin Bitcoin, and then we're going to steal it and confiscate it through eminent domain. Like, well, okay, fine, but let's play that through. Okay, could the government say we're confiscating your assets?
Yeah.
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Would they be sued and challenged? And yes. Could they still get away with it? Probably. But here's the problem. Unless they get 100%, not 99, not 99.5, not 99.9, unless they get 100%, what happens to the value of the network if you lose 99% of the coins? It all goes to what's left. I mean, Satoshi talked about this in the emails leading up to the white paper. He said, well, people are worried about, well, what happens if you lose your keys or something gets lost or stolen? It's like, well, yep, that is a risk of a bearer asset, and it's probably going to happen. Just consider it a donation to the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That is the way it works. So as long as there's 0.0000001 Bitcoin somewhere, and we know there's 1 million coins. Okay, I say we know. We think there are 1 million coins in the Satoshi wallet that are off limits, right? Either Satoshi has disappeared or passed away or whatever, or Satoshi's not one person, it's multiple people. And Hal Finney was one, it was a multi-sig and he died, and so they can't open the multi-sig. Or it's the CIA or the NSA and they really have the 1 million coins. I was
just going to bring that up.
So the thought of, well, that 1 million is never going away, so the value would all go there. But then if they confiscate 20 million and there's 1 million left in the Satoshi wallet, but it can never move, then is it mission accomplished? It's dead.
Right.
Okay, maybe.
Technically.
But my guess is, bottom line, they're not going to confiscate it because, that's literally stealing. And it's not like if you're stealing from the crypto bros, okay,
it's
fine.
It's justified, unfortunately.
It's justified, right? You guys wearing your black T-shirts, we don't like you. You cypherpunks. But guess who bought a whole bunch of the ETFs? Pension funds, high net worth people who pay a lot of money in lobbying to, the candidates. So are you really going to tell your billionaire donor you're taking their Bitcoin? I don't think so. So
have you seen any structural changes in the market, or have you seen any conversations surface since the ETFs have launched?
Yes, great.
With the inflows and the outflows and the nature of them not being live on the weekends impact trading at all?
No, it's a really important point. So look, we know that digital assets 24/7 global.
Yeah.
Now, most people in America still suffer from American exceptionalism. I say it's like, wait, which one? No,
right.
That one. It's like the Notre Dame thing behind me. I would say Americans are like Notre Dame football fans. They remember a past that never was.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame football fans think we win the championship every year. I'm like, guys, we haven't won since '88. That was like 100 years ago. Like, no, we win it. Like, no. In the 40s, we won every year.
Yeah.
Literally, we went 4 years undefeated. Well, how did that happen? Because the coach went to Europe during the war and got all the guys from Army and Navy to come back as 28-year-olds, and we had a semi-pro team for 4 years. You don't get to do that anymore except at BYU. So, no, we haven't won since '88. Americans are the same way. Like, oh, we're in charge. 20% or less of global crypto transactions. So it's not the United States centric, even though we would like to believe it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so we know that there's this cyclicality between the Asia Open and the US Open and the Europeans. So we know that. And then there's this issue of, well, you got the Binance crowd, the day trading little things. But we have seen a structure, to your point, Anthony, we've seen a structural change in that there are bigger blocks moving.
Yeah.
And they're moving in kind of the normalized windows. And the thing is driving me crazy. And no one's talking about this, and I don't understand why. But unbeknownst to most, January 10th, everyone was celebrating and hooping and hollering because the Bitcoin ETF was approved. Yeah. But very quietly, on the same day, not a coincidence, by the way, same day, the CME made a bunch of additional launches of futures contracts on Bitcoin. Now, why does that matter?
Yeah.
Well, remember how commodity markets work. And there's a reason Bitcoin was deemed a commodity. Mm-hmm. That was not an accident. Okay. So everybody's like, oh, it's good. It's not a security. No. This is the be careful what you ask for, you might get it. It's kind of like Fit 21, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Be careful what you ask for, you might get it. By being deemed a commodity and being under CFTC, what does that mean? Well, in the olden days, if I wanted to sell, Chad, oil, I had to have access to oil.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I had to have a barrel of oil that I could physically deliver to him. Now, with the advent of futures, I just write a contract out of thin air. I create a paper barrel of oil, oil that does not exist anywhere in the world, only on paper. And I say, yeah, I'll sell you that fake barrel. Now, as long as we settle up the contract before the delivery date, I don't have to go get any oil. But if he actually says, no, I want the freaking oil, I got to go find some oil. And that is why you see these wild swings both up and down in commodity markets over time. Because what happens is the big players say, you know what? I can manipulate the market. I can create paper commodities out of thin air, and I can buy them if I want the price to go up, and I can sell them if I want the price to go down. And so when the gold ETF got approved,
I was just gonna say.
No, exactly. So the gold ETF gets approved. Everyone's like, oh, this is gonna be great. Everyone's gonna buy gold. Yes, they are. And why was the gold ETF approved? It took 2.5 years. Why did it take 2.5 years? Because JP Morgan said, no. You can't approve that until we get short 2 times gold. 2 times the amount of tradable gold they were short. Because they said, okay, now you can have the GLD because they'll take the other side of our shorts.
Yes.
And so the price of gold didn't go up. It went like this. Actually, it went down and then it came back. 9 months. It took 9 months of JP Morgan making lots of money short in gold for the price, because then people started buying the ETF, to go up. Same thing happened with the Bitcoin ETF.
Yep.
Right after the launch, it goes down. What the hell? Because JP Morgan and others are shorting the future. Yeah. And what, again, people aren't paying attention to. There's this guy, Leo Melamed. So he is part of I used to use the word cabal, but people get mad because it's a trigger word. But the group.
Yeah, very much so.
The group, right? He's part of the group that control the different elements of the markets. And he said years ago, like 2.5 years ago, we'll tame Bitcoin. What do you mean we? First of all, we. So he means them, the group.
Yeah, the powers that be.
What does tame mean? Well, you think your little toy, trading sardines, you can, have the price go up. There's more buyers than sellers. Well, I can make more sellers out of thin air. I can spoof that right away. And so all the time, like you saw one this morning, there's these big dumps.
Yeah.
What the hell? Who's selling? Well, ain't nobody selling. It's somebody writing a futures contract short that's caused. So it's not the spot market that's moving. Okay. It's the futures market. And and why do they do that? Well, if you look, since the advent of the Bitcoin ETFs, more than 100% of the gain, like 50% gain or something, comes after hours when the markets are closed.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, hold on. So you're telling me
then
9:30 to 4, there's no movement.
And then,
but overnight there's big movements because the futures are pushing the price down.
Right.
And it gaps up in the morning. And so, because if you're a big organization, or even a small organization, and you want to buy a lot of something, do you want to pay a high price or a low price?
Low.
I'd like to pay a low price. So I tell the story of copper. Julian Robertson or Dwight Anderson, who worked for Julian, convinced Julian they should buy a bunch of copper. And Dwight was this young guy, and he came in with all these reports and he gave it to Julian. And Julian's like, okay, yep. All right, go sell 50 million copper. And Dwight's like, no, I want you to buy it. He's like, no, just do what I say. Go short 50 million copper and call Morgan Stanley and tell them we hate copper and get as short as we possibly can.
Yeah.
I said, why would we do that? It's like, because we want the price to go down so then we can buy 500 million of copper.
Yeah.
So that is the oldest trick in the book.
Diamond's doing.
And it's what
exactly what's happening. You said this last time. When people like Jamie Dimon are talking negatively about crypto in general, that is a huge signal to maybe to start buying, because
always don't do as they say, do as they do.
Yeah.
Look, I used to get, when I was growing up in the business, back in the old days where they had physical pieces of paper for reports.
Yeah.
I'd get this stack of mail every morning, and it'd be from Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs and all the people that would send out research. And, I'd look through it and I'd tear stuff off and I'd keep it on my desk. And I started noticing this trend that whatever was on the cover of these reports did really shitty for the next 60, 90 days. Yeah. Like, are they really that bad? I'm like, think about it. They pay their analysts top dollar, millions of dollars. And their reports are shit. And someone said, this older person that knew what they were talking about, said, Mark, are you joking? That's the opposite of their prop desk. They're just trying to get sellers, to sell them on the prop desk, or they're trying to get buyers they can sell to on the prop desk. I'm like, no way, that has to be illegal. It's like, no, it's not illegal at all, because those are opinions. And so no one tracks the recommendations. No one tracks Goldman's recommendations or Morgan's recommendations. It's just like no one pays attention to revisions in the employment data. Every single month this year,
correct.
Every single month, the following month, the numbers are revised down.
So is this what we're looking at then? If this ETH ETF is not approved, it's because the JP Morgans of the world are just not ready yet. And that's exactly what it is.
How do you think staking plays into the equation? Because that's a unique characteristic to Ethereum that Bitcoin doesn't have. So if you're a spot ETF, I guess staking would be very confusing with a spot ETF because of inflows and outflows.
I think it's another really important point. A great question. Yeah. At the end of the day, securities or assets, it's NFT securities, commodities, currencies, there are stocks, bonds, currencies, commodities. There are 4 things that you can own, and however you want to classify them. And this idea that we're using an orange grove test for, 21st century assets.
It's crazy.
Crazy. But all that said, staking, right? Kind of like a deposit account, right? You're depositing an asset, you're earning interest on it. Any place that a financial institution can insert itself and get paid, they want to do that. And so, part of the problem of gold, quote Buffett, doesn't do anything, doesn't produce anything. No, it doesn't. But that's not its job. It's not a dividend paying security. It's not a yield bearing instrument like a bond. It is a store of value. Mm-hmm. What is that? What is that? Well, it is what it is. It's a store of value. And look, whether you like it or not, and it wasn't always this way. I mean, we had cowrie shells and stone wheels and copper coins, but all those came and went. And the scarcest, most durable, most finite supply asset that survived belief and custom, because that's all it is. It's just belief and custom. 5,000 years, a single ounce. If you have a single coin, 1 ounce of gold, you can barter it for a fine person's suit.
Correct.
For 5,000 years. I mean, that's pretty amazing when you think about it. And, there were times when you needed one Deutschmark, and there were other times you needed a wheelbarrow of Deutschmarks because paper currency can be devalued, but gold can't, because you can't print gold. Now you can mine gold, but the amount that's mined roughly equals the amount lost or stolen. So the stock to flow stays really high and pretty stable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, Bitcoin is the digital form of this.
Right.
And so it is a digital commodity. Now, could it also be other things? And people say, oh, Bitcoin's failed because, no one's using it to buy coffee. Like, well, actually, there are people using it to buy coffee, but that's not the point. Yeah. Peer-to-peer doesn't necessarily mean I'm using a tiny amount to buy coffee. What peer-to-peer means is that I can send some to you without JP Morgan, without Bank of America, without the Bank of International Settlements, without Standard Charters, without anybody. Yeah. That's all it means.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's a savings technology that's superior to the savings technology we have now. I take my fiat, right? So I'm a debt slave like everybody else. So I take my fiat and I deposit it in my savings. Okay. Now, if I leave it in cash, they steal it back from me minute by minute.
It goes
inflation, right? If I put it in a money market, I maybe offset the inflation so I break even. If I invest it and I buy a bond or stock, then maybe I can accrete some value over time. The problem is that inflation is still chewing away
at
my savings. Well, if I convert some portion of it to Bitcoin or gold, now that asset doesn't change.
Yeah.
An ounce of gold is still an ounce of gold, right? 1 Bitcoin is 1 Bitcoin. But we don't price Bitcoin in Bitcoin. We don't price gold in gold. We price gold in dollars or euros or yen or, pesos or bolivars. Yeah. And, I'm involved in this little company, and it is little. Well, it's a little teeny tiny and it's gone up a lot, but maybe too far, too fast. But this is called MetaPlanet. So MetaPlanet is a Japanese company. And
you were just there like last month, weren't you? Or you're speaking on it. I think
Jason Fang was speaking on it. Yeah. So he's also one of the partners. And so we invest, and we're trying to build the micro strategy of Asia, right?
Yes.
Very lofty goal. Look, you got to have big, hairy, audacious goals. So if we're going to go big, let's go big. And, we're starting with a little teeny tiny real estate company instead of a, big software company that Michael had. But Michael Saylor had this great idea. I got a business that's kind of I can take the capital and I can trick the treasury in Bitcoin. And then instead of losing the value to inflation, I have a deflationary asset. oh, and people will lend me money
Right.
in fiat, and I can pay literally close to zero, and I can buy this appreciating asset. Great business. So we're like, all right, we're going to do the same thing. And so we, convert to do this. And now I forgot where I was going with the beginning of the story. But anyway, so what were we talking about before Metaplanet?
We were talking about not the structure of the market.
Anyway, it'll come back.
It was gold, store value of Bitcoin.
Oh, store value. So yeah, thank you. Sorry. So the reality is that we picked Japan because the yen is the most devaluing asset in the world. Yeah. Right. In terms of major currencies, because they have such a high debt to GDP ratio, the only way out is to keep devaluing the yen.
Right.
So
what does that say about the United States on a go-forward basis?
Well, they're in third place. So the yen is the worst.
Canada, I think, too.
The euro's a little better, and the US dollar is a little better, but they're all in a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
And that's why DXY is such a little bit of a scam. So everybody's like, oh, the dollar's so strong. DXY is going up. I'm like, no, you idiots. No, DXY is the yen and the euro. And all that means is the yen and the euro are worse. So you're the least bad of the major currencies. But the reality is Japan is already there, right? They have a population that is 65 to 85 and about to go 85 to 105. So very low productivity, very low growth, no inflation, deflationary. They're at the end of days, and their population rate is declining. Yeah. Europe and the US are 10 and 11 years behind Japan. So everything that happens in Japan happens 11 years later in the United States, whether it's a debt downgrade, whether it's a market peak, a real estate collapse, whatever it is. And it's because every single day here and in Europe, 10,000 people turn 65. I got 4 more years. Yeah. So 65 to 85-year-old people are not productive, and they don't spend very much. It doesn't mean they're not good people. They're very nice people, but they're not productive. Same with 25 to 45, not productive. Well, who's productive? 45 to 65-year-old people. Those are the productive years of a society. When you have a lot of 25-year-olds, you have high inflation. And when you have a lot of 65-year-olds, you have a lot of deflation. Okay. And so it's not shocking that the Western world is in a deflationary spiral. And it's not shocking that places like India, which have 25% of all the people in the world under the age of 35, have higher inflation. That's not.
So where's the US in 10 years?
It looks like Japan, right? Where we'll be in a deflationary spiral. And look, it doesn't mean the end of the world. If you go to Tokyo, it's awesome.
Yeah.
The restaurants are great. Yeah. People are well-dressed. They're happy. Their apartments are nice.
Do you think we're in a stage now where we're starting to see more and more younger people, even people late 30s, early 40s, that are picking up and they're moving away from, say, North America, going to places like all over the world, Dubai, where they're actually looking at just the Western world and thinking, what is the long-term trajectory here? And is there better options for me? Like I see and hear a lot of those conversations on a day-to-day basis.
For sure, you're right. And look, I actually watched an interesting movie, Ticket to Paradise, right? George Clooney and Julia Roberts and the two and the girl goes to Bali for her post-graduation trip, and she meets a seaweed farmer and they fall in love, and the parents go and they're like, you can't live here. And like, why? Have you looked around? It's the most beautiful place on earth.
Yeah.
And we have a really nice thriving business and selling to Whole Foods and like, why would I leave? Right. And then they jump off the boat and go with them. So, I mean, cute movie, all that good stuff. But you think about, to that point, I last year went to 2 places, Costa Rica and Portugal, to check them out. Now,
Portugal's
I'm
great.
still in Chapel Hill. My wife really didn't want to live in either one of those places. She's like, okay, these are nice, but I still want to live. Now, we're in that older demographic. My kids' generation is thinking more about, well, should I think about this? And I have, colleagues, now they get to hang out with the crypto kids. And I mean kids in an affectionate way. I don't mean that in a disparaging way. I mean it in a very affectionate way. I like hanging out with young, smart, hungry, intelligent people who want to change the world. But there are people who have relocated to both of those places, Portugal and Costa Rica. And there are others around the world, but you can take this to the extreme. I mean, I follow a bunch of guys on Twitter that are saying, yeah, AI is going to progress so fast that all these manual things that we have to do are going to go away. And so you better go learn to self-actualize and have the human experience be different and, go off the grid and grow your food and all. Now, I'm not there.
No,
but I can see the point, right? Which is, society and civilization progress.
Yeah.
If you go back a couple hundred years, we didn't really have supermarkets. You had to spend some part of your day hunting, foraging, gathering, storing, stocking, chopping firewood. You didn't have time to do, podcasts and spreadsheets. No. And in the future, we probably won't need to do, podcasts because it'll be AIs talking to each other. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah. Although I don't think it'll ever do the human thing. Like I always say, the test for me about human versus artificial is, I think somebody showed the picture today on Twitter of the two AIs having a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, talking about, oh, what's new? I don't know what's new. Oh, what did you learn? Oh, I learned about quantum computing. Oh, what did you think was interesting about quantum? And it was interesting in that those two machines parroted information that was known about quantum computing. Right?
That's the problem. I mean, when you look at AI,
plagiarizer, it's a perfect plagiarizer. And but it's not
when you look at AI, it's a parrot.
It's a parrot, right? It's a parrot.
Yeah.
And what a human can do is, like, you guys had a plan on what we were going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And I do this to everybody I come on a podcast with. I don't pay attention to the plan. I just talk. And because the brain gets 90,000. I don't know how they counted that number, but 90,000 thoughts in a day. Well, you can't process 90,000. So you got to ignore a bunch of them. And then you got to pick a couple. And whether you ask a particular question or I think of something or I forget something, it all goes to this natural kind of human way of thinking. And the thing that I've become a little bit obsessed with is Jeffrey Hinton is the father of AI, and he's Mr. Google, and everybody that worked for him is getting these big valuations in Silicon Valley. And okay, well, he had a collaborator in, I think it was City College London, and he was Hinton's the computer scientist, and this other guy, Carl, I can't remember Carl's last name, was the neurobiologist or neuroscientist. And Jeffrey said, this is the way it works, and LLMs and intuiting the next word and all this good stuff. And Carl saying, that ain't how the human brain works. Like, you're using massive amounts of electricity and massive amounts of power to brute force sentences. The human brain uses one light bulb of energy.
Yeah.
One light bulb. And it doesn't brute force. It actually excludes things and creates intelligence, true intelligence, out of brain matter. And again, I'm not a neurobiologist, but it's a really fascinating thing when you think about, as great as ChatGPT is.
Yeah.
Right? You ask it a question and it gives you a beautiful answer.
Yeah.
Like, well,
there's no human element to it. You need a
Well, there's no
personality.
human element,
There's
but
no.
more importantly,
You need a
it's
takeaway.
great at telling me stuff that already exists on the internet.
You want an opinion, though. You want a takeaway.
Well, it can't. But that's.
No.
I mean,
I
AI.
want it to be able to ask questions.
Correct.
And,
but that's AGI. But that's getting into more
new thought and new, like.
But that's getting more into like AGI and not so much like the
course,
LLMs,
which
and like GPTs. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
This guy Carl would say it's not going to happen because you're going about it the wrong way, and you can brute force all you want, but brute force only works if you have the raw materials to study. Like say coding.
Also, because technically, but technically, when you're feeding an LLM, I mean, for the LLM to ever have original thought, it's not the data that's being input. It's not original. It is original thought already that the machine is feeding off of. So therefore,
it has
it's
to learn off
pattern
something.
recognition.
Right.
It's learning off of it. It can't improvise at
that's
all.
the thing. It can't improvise,
Yeah.
and it can hallucinate.
Yeah.
Right? It can make shit up, but and maybe that is. Maybe the making shit up part is part of improvisation and
that's kind of like human brilliance.
Knowledge.
I mean, the fact that we can make shit up. I mean, that's what makes us human.
So, drum this back. You were mentioning about Portugal, Costa Rica, and people potentially moving to these other places. Like when you talk a lot about the advancements of AI and what kind of impact this will have on our economy, and you talk about the aging demographic, like in 10 years, like you ever thought like what America looks like 10 years from now?
Look, for sure. And one thing we know is aging populations become retirement homes.
Yeah.
Right? You're basically healthcare and residential kind of, because an AI is not going to give someone their meds.
No.
An AI is not going to lift someone up to roll them over so they don't get bed sores.
We're building cyborgs.
Robotics.
We're building robots.
But I hear you. I think that's a generation away. But what I'm seeing
I'm with you on the robots. I mean, although I still struggle with Rosie the robot, right, from the Jetsons, the cartoon, did all this stuff, and here we are 50 plus years later, we still don't have Rosie the robot. So maybe it's coming. And look, those robot dogs, they're scary. Okay.
I almost bought one for the hell of it, the one that had the flamethrower attached to it.
I
thought about what my wife would do if I get a robot dog with a flamethrower that I just paid 10 grand for delivered to my house.
Yeah.
And I instantly chalked that up in the bad idea department. And decided not to.
Yeah. But look, will there be robots that do human tasks? Sure. And a robot is like, we just had to deal with this with my father-in-law who recently passed, but in his, final days, he was wheelchair bound and literally the only person who could lift him was a certain guy that worked for, like, of the 3 or 4 people that came each week, there was only one that could do the physical lifting. I mean, you had to be big enough to lift a human out of the wheelchair and put him into bed. The average person couldn't do that. So will there be machines that help with that? Sure. Yeah. But what does it look like? A couple things. An aging population, again, not very productive, right? It's, they're not doing the core work, right? They're not going to be investment bankers and lawyers. Now, will we have machines that do most of the lawyering and the investment bankering and the investment? Yeah, maybe. And then what we will actually need, I think this is the cool part. You probably don't remember this, but in 2000, there was a commercial. And it's basically a table, and all you could see was like legs and feet. And you saw, and they panned down the table, and you saw, wingtips and high heels, and then you hear some walking, and the door closed and walking, and then you see a pair of red tennis shoes sit down, and they're like, "Oh, welcome, Mr. Chairman." That was never a good idea. It's not a good idea today, right? It was never a good idea to make the 20-year-old the chairman. What you want is the guy in wingtips or the gal in high heels who's 60, 70, 80 with experience and knowledge to be the chairman. It doesn't mean the 20-year-old can't be the founder. Doesn't even mean they can't be the CEO. But they should never have been the chairman because they don't have any experience and wisdom and knowledge. And if you think about Japan, for example, they have a culture that values
experience,
aged and wise.
Well, I mean, but that's going back millennia. I mean, most cultures, aside from the one that we're living in present day America, which I mean, you could argue that the two guys that are potentially going to be in charge have even aged out of that wisdom phase. I mean, we don't really
sure. And well, I mean, there's to me, there are certain jobs where wisdom's really, really important.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And there are other jobs where vitality is really, really important. Yeah. And leadership, it's about vital, right? I want John F. Kennedy, not Joe Biden, right? That's what I want.
100%.
And you can say, well, John F. Kennedy was a cad, he was a bad person. I don't care. I want the vital, young, energetic, and as my leader. Now, do I want him to surround himself with really smart people like Ronald Reagan, right? Ronald Reagan, he wasn't young and vital, but he was charismatic.
Yep.
And he surrounded himself with genius, and he didn't try to do stuff. The problem we have now is we have people who aren't capable trying to do stuff, and they don't surround themselves with wisdom. They surround themselves with yes men and women.
Control.
So, I mean, I guess I don't even know how to say this. I guess Trump did surround himself with people I would consider smart. The problem is they all realized who Trump was and they left.
Exactly.
Gary Cohn, Steve Mnuchin, Rex Tillerson.
Good point.
Those were all seriously intelligent gentlemen in
their
own right, and they realized
he incentivized them improperly,
into.
Right? The reason they volunteered is you know how it works. If you go into a cabinet position, you can sell all of your assets and pay zero tax.
Correct.
So you can take these $1 billion of gains. That's why Jamie Dimon is going to go in a cabinet position, right? He's talking about retiring. Absolutely. Yeah. He's going to end up as Secretary of the Treasury or something like that.
Yeah.
Where he can sell all that JP Morgan stock, pay zero taxes, and then he'll quit. And like, well, no. If you get zero taxes, I don't like it because I have to pay my taxes, but fine. Yeah. Okay. Maybe you should get a reduced rate instead of zero, but then you got to commit. You got to stay. Right. It's kind of like my personal pet peeve was when Milken, when they send him to jail. Like, you know what? Don't send him to jail. Yeah. That's just dumb, right? He's going to go to a country club jail and he's going to just sit and read and get smarter. Michael Milken is one of the smartest men on the planet, right?
Right.
You don't have to like him. And what he did was wrong and he needed to pay. But what I would have done, East LA. You're going to live in East LA. And when it's fixed, you can leave.
Yeah.
He would have fixed it. Yeah. He would have done the same thing that Mitt Romney did to the Olympics in Salt Lake. Yeah. He would have fixed it because these people are really talented. And so let's, if Wilbur Ross is going to get this free tax benefit, then stay around and give us your wisdom and help grow some of the young talent. But this idea that, Tillerson, how long was he there? Like 4.5, like 7 Scaramucci's? I mean, I don't know.
That's a great example, though.
The adults left the room very quickly.
And look, I would too. Look, here's my problem. So I don't know what I'm going to do because I absolutely positively can't support the current whatever they've become.
I'm with you.
And yet I just there's so much about the Donald that I just can't handle.
Correct.
But here's where I can rationalize it. Everything Trump does is about Trump.
Oh yeah.
Everything he does is about maximizing his and his family's wealth and power.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to like that. But okay, that actually doesn't harm me.
No.
What's happening today is harming me, my family, my friends.
Yeah.
I got to clear that out. And if it means putting a guy in who's a complete,
I hear you.
You know,
yeah.
I'm because it doesn't harm me. Like him passing the law that the inheritance tax goes away so he can pass it on to his kids.
Correct.
Okay, I don't plan on dying next year or in the next 4 years, you know, God willing. So maybe it doesn't help me, but it does. I don't begrudge him that. Well, maybe I do begrudge him that, but I don't. It's not gonna.
And he's now gravitating towards crypto.
Exactly.
He's the reason why Biden. He's the reason why Biden took this stance.
Yeah, it's why it's look. If he picks Vivek as a running mate, I'm all in.
Same.
And
you make a good point, though. It's the current administration affects everyday Americans like us, where you know. You got to keep your ego aside, and if it's not affecting you, and as much
I am a lifelong dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. What that means is I believe that people should lift themselves up by their bootstraps, and they should take advantage of all the opportunity we have in America. But if you fail, there should be a safety net.
Yeah,
that's me, right? But what we got now on that side ain't that.
No,
and it's like Bolshevik, Nazi, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And I see the impact it's having on everyone, like people all around me, people I care about. And that has to go away because
I like listening to Bill Maher, and he was totally against Trump. He's actually changed his outlook on him, but at the same time, he just continues to say how the Democratic Party is just so out of touch with the everyday American and have been for decades.
Well, but here's the thing. This is the scariest thing to me. And when people like, I have a polarizing personality, right? You might have noticed I say things that I think. And so some people don't like it. And people really don't like when I talk about this. But this was a big thing for me. So I stumbled across a speech by Putin. And it was in Russian, so I am relying on the interpreter.
Mm-hmm.
But I figure if the interpreter was lying, someone would have called them out on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
And basically, Putin was saying, I don't understand why everyone is confused about what's happening with the attack on family values, attack on gender, attack on this. He says, this is not new. You know, this is the 1910 Bolshevik playbook. I'm like, whoa, time out. What are you talking about?
Whoa.
I know it is.
You go back and research this. The Bolsheviks did this, like transgender men and women are there's more than just two. I mean, all the things we're hearing now are from, and then again in the 1940s with the Nazis. I'm like, no, come on, this can't be.
Yeah.
And it is. And like, well, why? Why would you do that? And look, it's a playbook, right? If you want to conquer, you divide and conquer. Absolutely. And I was like, this is crazy, crazy stuff. And so the cognitive dissonance for me is like, so whoa. What you're telling me is this guy that we label the despot, crazy, murderous, horrible person sounds more logical than the people that
the problem is the guy that we label the crazy despot is probably the smartest guy in the room of any room that he goes into.
I know.
No one wants to admit it.
I know.
And he does some very questionable things. But the man, I've said it before, he is highly intelligent and he's smarter than any guy that we have sitting in the Oval Office. That's running this country, unfortunately, because intelligence left the room when it comes to the U.S. government a very long time ago.
Yeah,
and sensibility did too.
Mark, what do you think the current administration, the old establishment, what do you think their long-term goal is for this country?
See, this is the sad part because I joke that when when W was proximate to the Cheney presidency, I knew who to be afraid of. Correct. I was afraid of Dick Cheney. He was a badass mofo. I mean, the dude was wicked, and he was in charge. And I knew he was in charge, and W was there because he was, senior son, and I knew who to be afraid of. I don't know who to be afraid of now. It ain't, Joe Biden. It ain't Kamala. So who is it? Who am I afraid of?
Everyone keeps saying it's Barack, but I can't buy that. Mm-hmm. I can't buy that either.
He was installed. Remember this. Remember, Barack Obama was not even in contention.
I know.
Hillary Clinton had a 30-point lead in the polls.
That man knew how to talk.
And she dropped out.
Yeah.
What? No one drops out when you're 30 points ahead. I'm sorry. So he was installed. So it ain't him. So someone else installed him.
Yeah.
People say, oh, it's Clinton. No. Remember, he was a nobody governor from nowhere. Now, yes.
From Arkansas.
So let me help
you. If you turn over the back of a $2 bill, his grandfather is one of the three guys with their legs crossed left or right. I can't remember which one is the Illuminati thing. That's why it's William Jefferson Clinton, right? I mean,
wow.
So
help me understand. You basically
I actually keep one of those in my wallet.
No, look at the back. Yeah, on the left-hand side, the three guys, one of those is Clinton's great-great-great-grandfather.
Wow.
Okay.
So you looked at a Dick Cheney and he was running this country and you're like, yeah, that guy was for real. Now you're really not scared of anyone today. So
I am scared. I just don't know. I don't know if I'm scared of George, right? And now Alex, but I'm not really scared of Alex. I am scared of George, but I'm not really scared of Alex.
Soros?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's them or if it's beyond them, right? Are we going all the way back to Clan Rothschild? And I don't know. I don't. I
think about this a lot. I mean, I'd rather talk about it off camera.
No. Look, I was doing this.
Some of the things my mind goes to.
I was doing the FTX. Someone asked me about FTX, and I said, totally planned, totally. And here I can show you where the money goes from Ukraine.
He was a useful idiot.
Into whatever their research company was, and then into the shell companies owned by SBF and then the Democratic candidates. So I can show you that. That's just called money laundering. Literally, the lights in my building went out. The thing went black. People were texting me like, oh my God, did the black cats come and get you? So I'm with you. We shouldn't talk about it on air, so to speak. But look, there's, at the end of the day, you asked the question, what do I think? The sad reality is I believe it's intentional, right? I have a hashtag for it on Twitter, Dictator Playbook 101.
It can't not be intentional.
If you're a dictator, right, your number one way to stay in power is you impoverish the masses intentionally, and then you give them free stuff to buy their votes. Because I always said, how did Uncle Bob in Zimbabwe stay in power?
Yeah.
Right? He made people's lives miserable. He stole everything for himself and his cronies. But how did he stay in power? Gave away free stuff to buy votes. How did Maduro stay in power in Venezuela? Right? Gave away free gasoline. How did the Peronists stay in power in Argentina? Gave away free electricity. So what are we talking about? Oh, we'll forgive your student loans. We'll give you money for gasoline. I mean, they're releasing gasoline from the SPR right now in real time ahead of the long weekend to try to buy votes. So,
but this is where people like me that are old enough experience to see through this, but still have another 20 to 25 years to go before I retire.
And it pisses me off with the student loan forgiveness, because why don't you send me a check as well, someone that actually paid off a portion of their student loans, and I'll take the damn money and reinvest it.
There's so many things wrong with it, but look, the way politics works, right, is you A/B test a bunch of things.
Yeah.
what if we make student loan interest deductible? Okay. What if we make interest rates on federal loans lower than average?
Yeah.
What if we, forgive student debt? And then you poll people, will you vote for me or not? And they do that over and over and over. And so look at what's happening with the legislation around crypto. So you got Ms. Warren, who's never passed a bill. This is crazy, to be in office all those years and never have one of her named bills get passed. I'm like, that can't be true, but it's amazing.
I did not know that.
And then people say, oh, but she contributed to other bills. I'm like, fine, whatever. But she never got a named bill passed. But she wanted to make self-custody illegal.
Which is
like
crazy.
Literally, Executive Order 6102, gold's illegal. Now, if you have self-custody, you're a criminal. I can put you in jail. And look, I've seen, the movie rendition, that people do get stuffed in the back of vans and disappear, right? And I don't want that. I really don't. So the idea that if you own digital assets on your phone, you're a criminal and you can be taken without due process, that would be bad.
Well, guys,
so
go ahead for finish your thought.
No. But the point. So the point is, you look at that bill; it never saw the light of day. But she talked about it a lot,
I know,
and she was trying to get votes with it because that was what was testing in the AB. Now suddenly, because and depends who you talk to, more crypto owners than dog owners in America, right? 65 to 64 million, whatever. And so, oh no, they're miscounting the dog owners. I'm like, okay, but it's close enough. And so now they're like, oh, well, maybe I should be supportive with, good oversight. So now you got this FIT bill. Now this is the be careful what you ask for, you might get it.
Yeah.
Like we want it out of the SEC and under the CFTC. I mean, not the CFTC, the Secretary of Commerce. Oh, okay. Why don't you do a little work on Ms. Raimondo?
Correct.
And look, I'm not going to cast aspersions on Gina. I've known her a very long time. We were venture capitalists together. I invested in her original fund. Watch her talk about China. Go back and do some research on her comments over the last 2 years on China.
Yeah.
And then look at the Chinese stock market over the last 2 years until recently this year. Now it's up a lot again. But it's the devil, Gary, we know him, we love him. I'm way more afraid of Gina Raimondo than I am Gary Gensler.
100%. Gary hasn't done anything against it. Really.
Exactly.
He's just been a figurehead for stifling progress. He hasn't really reverted any progress.
Exactly.
But I think the whole reason we want you here today is just to find out about where this ETH ETF, whether over under. You think it's the under? I think it's just let's see. We'll find out. We're going to post this video a little bit later this afternoon, but 7 o'clock we should get a decision. I think it just comes down to it as we talk a lot about these world economics combined with crypto. It's just the old establishment one day closer becoming more and more obsolete and learning how to let go. And you can understand the real power and influence that they have. And this is
and to that point, that's a great way to finish up is when BlackRock put in their application June 15th, 23.
Yeah.
I said publicly on that day, guarantee you there'll be an ETF. And I even gave a date, right? I said it'll be on the King's birthday, January 8th. I was off by 2 days. Sue me. And again, that's a humble brag, but it wasn't me. It was Larry. When Larry says I'm in, he's 574 and 1. He's only lost one application. And so that's the only reason I'm not comfortable saying definitely no way this thing gets passed.
Okay.
Because the fact that BlackRock did put an application in, they don't lose. They just don't. And so
they're like the 1940 Fighting Irish, right?
Exactly.
Everybody laughs.
Very well played. Well played.
Everybody laughs when I call him Daddy Larry, and I'm like, well, Larry wants, Larry gets.
No, Larry gets. So that would almost make me change my vote to say that they are going to go ahead and approve it. But I just think Gary's, to Anthony's point, Gary's taken too many L's.
Yeah.
If he votes yes on this, it's basically like, doing the thing on the forehead. I mean,
yeah. I can see it being passed within the next 6 months. I don't think it gets done today.
Like if one of those other two, and I can't remember who, if one of the other two voted yes and Gary could vote no, then it could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's find out if it's approved. Somebody are predicting a 60% surge in price, but then obviously if it's not, they're going to see a big correction in pricing as well. So it's going one way or the other, and we will find out within the next 12 hours. So,
that's right.
Mark, always
volatility is our friend, not our enemy. It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
Downside volatility sucks, but what it does, it gives you a chance to buy an asset cheaper. It was funny. I was talking to I'll leave it this. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and it's like, I was going to buy some crypto, and I was going to buy some Bitcoin, and went up. What should I do? I should buy some.
Right.
Don't buy it all at once. Never buy it all at once. Buy some today. Buy some tomorrow, buy some next week, buy some, the week after, and just do it over time, because the buyer's remorse is going to kill you, right? If it was 60 and you missed it and it went 65, I'm going to wait for a pullback and now it's 70. Well, okay, now it's 68. It doesn't matter because your time rise. If you're a trader, then deal with it. But if you're just buying it for savings, it doesn't matter. And I always say it's like I post this clip from time to time. I was on CNBC, I don't know, 2017 or 18, doesn't really matter. And while I was on the show, the price went from like 10 to 8. And it was only 6 minutes. I mean, it was like one of those flash crashes.
Yeah.
And Melissa Lee is like, well, what should we do? I buy it. She says, oh, well, you'd always say that. If it went to 5, I'm like, yeah, I would. Buy it today,
100%.
buy it tomorrow, buy it next week, buy it next month. Because it's not the price. Price is a liar. Price has nothing to do with value. Value is the value of the network. And what all of us want is to own a piece of the most powerful computing platforms in the history of the world. Bitcoin, clearly one of those.
Yep.
Ethereum, most likely one of those. Solana, maybe, possibly. It's better, faster, cheaper.
Doesn't
is
work
it better? I don't know. It's faster and cheaper. I don't know if it's better. But are there going to be, look, Bitcoin, base layer of money, full stop. Digital gold, great. Virtual machines, we're probably going to have them. And, most of the developer activity is still on Ethereum, so it's probably a good one. Solana, it's increasing. Now, a lot of that increase is meme coins, so I'm not sure that's valuable. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm not sure it's adding to, probably not. Like I was reading a big thing today. I'll get out of here, but I was reading a big thing today about Socrates. And I love the fact that everything we talk about in terms of self-help and management, it's just Socrates and
it's all his regurgitated.
Cicero the younger. It's 2,600-year-old wisdom, back to wisdom. And what was really crazy is, I had forgotten this part. He was put to death for teaching the kids to question authority. It sounds familiar, doesn't it? It sounds familiar. And
sounds very familiar. I can't believe we're in this. I can't believe, like, I'm 47 years old now, and I can't believe, like, how much it's changed. And, like, look, 20 years is a long time, but it goes by fast, Mark, as you know.
Yep.
But think of how much this world has changed, even in the last 20 years.
Well, I'll go one better. Just the last 5 or 6.
I know, you're right.
20 it's unrecognizable. Unrecognizable. But the last,
think about how the world's changed since COVID.
We were in New York last year, 47% office space, vacant. My wife, she works for a firm downtown Toronto, 53% office floor space, vacant. And this is why I asked this question. It's like, where does this world go? Like, if you can work virtually online, which is the younger generation, it's like, I know a lot of people that left Manhattan, went to Costa Rica. They absolutely love it. And there's a huge community down there of Americans with great schools. And they're like, we actually love living here. And it's like, do you see more and more of that trend happen, you know, moving forward? And if you look at the next 10 years and it mirrors what Japan's going to be, I think you have to keep your eyes open and consider all options right now, which seem to...
I mean, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole. We do it another day, but let's just think about what is the human condition, right? For most of humans' lives, there was no industrialization, right? There were no office jobs. There were no telecommunications.
Yeah.
And so then in the 1800s, we had this mechanical revolution. We converted muscle power into mechanical power, and we designed an education system to create factory workers.
Right.
So we train people not to be creative, not to be problem solvers, not to question authority. Do your job, okay? Because the people at the top knew they could get rich by employing lots and lots of people. Okay, now the information age comes along. Now we don't need as many people doing mechanical jobs. We need knowledge workers. Okay, so we have a whole legion of knowledge workers, investment bankers and accountants. Well, blockchains obviate the need for accountants. I don't need accountants and auditors. I have truth.
Accountants are gone.
I don't need trust anymore. I don't need to audit because I've got an auditable, permanent, immutable ledger. Okay, so what are those people going to do? Entertainment. We're going to entertain each other. We're going to be artists and poets. And in some ways, we're going back to the future. Like, right? Why do we have such great architecture and great art from, 2,000 years ago? Because you spent your whole life. Like the guy who did the doors. I'm going to go see these doors in Florence this year. And the guy spent his whole life doing 2 doors with all the cards. He did his whole life. And people are like, well, that's ridiculous. I'm like, I don't know. It's pretty cool. It's standing, 1,000 years later.
I think it's indicative of the times, because someone was saying it the other day. When you look at the 70s and when you look at the 90s, and then when you look at now with what's going on with like civil disobedience and like cultural unrest, like the music was a lot better in those two in those two eras. There's nothing that's come out of
purpose.
Artistic.
Question for another day. What's the purpose of being human? Are we supposed to work in a cubicle and spit out projects for the man? Are we supposed to write poetry? Are we supposed to play music? Are we supposed to think intellectual thoughts? Are we supposed to have Socratic conversations? I don't have an answer, but what is the human experience?
I think it's supposed to be a wide spectrum of that. Everybody kind of
those are all great
deviates off at some point or another. Because I mean, if you think about, I could go down this rabbit hole real far, but I mean, if you think about in school, you have your peers that just go, show up, do stuff. You then have your other peers that copy those kids. Then you have the kids, the very small percentage of the class that actually starts to question the teacher.
Yeah.
And then those kids just keep questioning. That's like when I was younger, I would just question everything. Like, don't tell me how to do something. Tell me why I need to do it.
Exactly.
And then I'm going to figure out why I need to be doing something. The curiosity has just kind of been distilled out of humanity to an extent.
But that was intentional, right? I mean, if you go back and you look at the history of American education.
Oh, I look at what I got taught in school and I'm like, it doesn't do anything.
This is frightening. It's a German guy that they brought over. And it was all about training away creativity, training away questioning authority. It's about obedience. It's about, what's the line? Tyranny doesn't come from the tyrants. It comes from your obedience.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's be disobedient and let's have some fun. So, hey, great to be with you guys. A lot of fun as always.
What's the purpose of being
excited
human?
To find out what we find out later today.
Yeah.
I like the question. What's the purpose of being alive, being a human? But those are all great points. Mark, appreciate the time. Let's keep in touch, okay?
Thank you, sir.
All right. Be well, guys.
Take care.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. What'd you all think? Is there any information that we're missing? Is there anything you want us to cover? As these industries heat up, we're getting access to more and more big hosts. So let us know the questions that you want us to ask for you. As usual, smash that like button. We want this to go viral. Click on that bell for all notifications for the latest interviews that we're doing. And as usual, Let's build this community. Subscribe to our channel because we appreciate it, because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.